mantra 11. Here it is. Okay. Mantra 11, which is the last mantra in this little subsection, you could say, about understanding the absolute and the relative, the spiritual and the material, in terms of knowledge. So mantra 11, Vidyam cha vidyam chayas, tadvedo bayam saha, avidyayam rityum tirtva, vidyayam ritam ashnute. Translation: only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? In order to come to the transcendental platform and enjoy the blessings, full blessings of immortality, you have to understand nescience. You have to understand the material world, material existence, and you have to understand transcendental knowledge. Both have to be there. And, well, we can see, I can just say, in a general sense, that Srila Prabhupada, if you listen to his classes, read his books, you'll see he's just so regularly pointing out what's wrong with the material world. Yeah, again and again. And why Krishna consciousness is better. That's the idea. Yeah, to understand the material world, how it works. That means the three modes of material nature, how people are influenced by the modes of nature, and therefore the world, things are going on in the world as they are. All right, so that's the basic idea. Like Prabhupada would say, and Krishna says basically in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, you are not that body. We are not these bodies. We have to understand that and what it means, all the different aspects of how we're not these bodies, how we're not part of this world, and what we are actually. So that's the idea of understanding nescience and understanding real knowledge side by side. So, okay, let's go through the purport. Right, so the first paragraph, well, Prabhupada makes the point, people want to live forever. Since the creation of the material world, people have been trying to attain a permanent life, but it's not possible because the laws of nature are so cruel. They're too cruel and strict. Birth, death, old age, and disease rule. They dominate the situation. No one is immune from them. The advancement, these are things Prabhupada's explaining in the purport, in the first paragraph. Advancement of science hasn't helped. And Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from the cruel hands of old age, disease, and death. Second paragraph. Now, I could just point out that the second, third, and fourth paragraphs are basically, they're focusing on Hiranyakashipu, actually. We've all heard of Hiranyakashipu. But he is being given as an example of these materialistic people who want to live forever. He's like a classic example, or even perhaps the classic example of someone who was on the material platform, but wanted to live permanently on the material platform, in the material body, and he was determined. So I think most of you, or probably all of you, know the story. This is what's described in these 3 paragraphs, 2, 3, and 4, that Hiranyakashipu, he, of course, it's a long story, but he managed to get some benedictions from Lord Brahma, who's very powerful. And so he asked, can you please free me from death? And Lord Brahma said, well, I can't, because I'm subject to it myself. So then Hiranyakashipu tried to be very clever and say, well, okay, then please arrange that I will not die during the day or during the night. And Lord Brahma said, yes. That I'll not be killed by any demigod or human or animal. Yes. I'll not be killed by any weapon or any disease. Anyway, so many things. And he thought he had thought of every way that he could possibly die. And so he thought he had achieved immortality. Little did he know, Prabhupada, at the end of the 3rd paragraph, Prabhupada says, ultimately, however, although Brahma granted him all these benedictions, he was killed by the personality of Godhead in the form of Nrsimha, the Lord's half-man, half-lion, half-man incarnation. So he was not killed by a human, he's killed by the Lord. Not killed by a weapon, he was killed by the Lord's nails. Nor was he killed on the land, in the air, or in the water, because he was killed on the lap of the Lord. You see, the Lord is very clever. So in the 4th paragraph, it's just this very short paragraph you can see there. Prabhupada says that if Hiranyakashipu failed, the most powerful of all materialists, he couldn't become deathless, then what can be accomplished by the modern demons, the modern Hiranyakashipus? Forget it. Just forget it. It's a completely crazy idea to somehow live forever within these material bodies. So we go on to paragraph 5. Well, it's also a very short paragraph. So Isopanisad tells us, stop trying to struggle to live forever, the struggle for existence on the material level. Stop it. Give your energy, give your attention to higher things, reviving your spiritual nature, going back to Godhead. Because the laws of material nature, they're too strong. They're just too strong. So strong that ultimately even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are killed by them. Yeah, so you must know, if Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot stop themselves being killed by the laws of material nature, how are we going to? So yeah, if you want that eternal life, you have to go back to Godhead. Now we have a special question for those of you doing Bhakti Shastri. Here is a quote from a letter of Srila Prabhupada to Burijan Prabhu from Bombay on November the 9th, 1975. November the 9th, 1975, to Burijan. Prabhupada says, you also have a child, so this is your responsibility to see that your family no longer again has to come back and take material body in this world of birth and death. This is the responsibility of a father in Krishna consciousness. So the question is, what is a father's responsibility in Krishna consciousness? And here's a few possible suggestions. To see that the family visits the temple, to see that the family chants Hare Krishna, or to see that the family reads Prabhupada's books. Well, yeah, they are the father's responsibility too. But actually the answer in terms of the letter is to see that his family no longer again has to come back and take material bodies in this world of birth and death. Okay, so we move on to paragraph 6. And here Prabhupada makes the point, and it's very important, that this whole thing, this knowledge about how to go back to Godhead, it is a different branch of knowledge from you're not studying. No, you're not. Oh, what you're studying? It's different from graphic design. But I also do graphic design for Krishna and video editing and stuff. So, but anyway, you know what I mean. The materialistic knowledge. And you get it not from the textbooks from the university, but from the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, particularly Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. So in order to become happy and to have life on the transcendental platform after death, we have to study these literatures. Unfortunately, people have forgotten the Lord, and they think this temporary place is our place. We belong here. This is our natural home. It's not. And Prabhupada concludes paragraph 6 saying, the Lord has kindly delivered the above-mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity, and he can be happy only by returning to his spiritual home. And paragraph 7. So yes, the Lord sends his bona fide representatives to spread the message, how one can come back to Godhead. Sometimes he comes himself. Yeah. And it's nice, Prabhupada mentions that because we're all the children of the Lord, his parts and parcels, Krishna, Prabhupada says, is more sorry than we are to see the sufferings that we are undergoing. We're undergoing sufferings. Krishna is more sorry for us having to undergo these sufferings than we are for actually undergoing the sufferings. Just see the ignorance. It's terrible. But by the arrangement of the Lord, the miseries of this world, they can help us by reminding us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Yeah. So intelligent people then, they take note of these reminders. Our suffering, the sufferings of other people in this world. Intelligent people become reminded that, oh, look at that. Look at how the people are suffering. It just shows I'm in the wrong place here, got to get out. So that's Krishna's mercy. Some suffering is Krishna's mercy. So Prabhupada concludes the 7th paragraph. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a Naradama, the lowest of human beings. Paragraph 8. Yeah, we have to keep moving, don't we? Because we've got how many paragraphs? We've got 13. We've got 13. So where are we? Paragraph 8. Okay. So the path of avidya, advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. But actually for us this is unnatural because we are spiritual. Birth and death are only natural for the material bodies. Yes. But unfortunately, foolish people absorbed in ignorance, they don't understand this, and they don't even mind having to go through so much suffering. So Prabhupada says, enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. Paragraph 9. So basically the point here is that cultivation of real vidya, transcendental knowledge, is essential. And in order to really do that effectively, sense gratification has to be restricted, because otherwise one will become distracted with this world and get caught up in this world. So sense gratification has to be restricted. And in this way, we can uncover our spiritual nature, and eventually our spiritual body with spiritual senses will manifest. Prabhupada's discussing this here. That real enjoyment is only possible when we get free from these bodies, material bodies, the disease of materialism. And then Prabhupada says, in our pure spiritual form, we will get real enjoyment by engaging in Krishna's service in our spiritual bodies with our spiritual senses. So, Prabhupada, to illustrate how it works, Prabhupada here in this paragraph, in the middle of the paragraph basically, says that a sick person, a patient in a hospital, must regain his health before he can really enjoy again. If he's just going to remain sick, he's not going to get back into an enjoyable program of life. So we have to get out of our diseased condition of being materially attached to this body and the world. And Prabhupada says we have to lower the degree of fever. At the moment, we have a fever of 105. What's 105? It's about 40 or something like that in centigrade. But we have to bring it down to the normal 98.6, which is, 38, something like that.
37.
Huh?
37.
Is it 37? Okay. But people are living, these feverish material lives, running around doing this and doing that and doing so many things. That's the feverish condition of material hyperactivity It's the feverish condition. And they're thinking to have a fever is good. I want a bigger fever. I want to be more engaged in material life. You get the idea? Prabhupada tells the story of one rich woman in Calcutta who was very puffed up, and she had a very poor servant girl, domestic servant. And, they're working together to some degree, and they both got sick at the same time with a fever, and the doctor came, and the doctor took their temperatures, and the rich lady, her temperature was about, shall we just say, her temperature was 40, but the servant girl, her temperature was 42. And the doctor and the rich lady chastised the doctor. How can she have a higher temperature than me? She's just, she's nobody. I should have a higher temperature. Take my temperature again. So Prabhupada says, Sri Isopanisad herein warns that we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we can become completely free from the cruel hands of death. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? So anyway, paragraph 10 doesn't mean that we stop all bodily activities. But we have to, as Prabhupada said, make the best use of a bad bargain, use this material body in Krishna's service, and therefore we look after the body, but we don't make a big fuss about it. We don't make the body the focal point of our lives. And Prabhupada concludes this 10th paragraph. The normal temperature should be maintained at 98.6, or shall we say 37. And the great sages and saints of India have attempted to do this by a balanced program of spiritual and material knowledge. They never allow the misuse of human intelligence for diseased sense gratification. And paragraph 11. So the Vedas give us a regulated program for achieving deliverance from all of this. And that Vedic program is Dharma, Artha, Karma, and Moksha, religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. But at the moment, people have no interest in religion or salvation. They're just interested in economic development and then getting sense gratification from that. So, and they think that religion should be maintained only if it helps with economic development for sense gratification. But actually religion is meant for self-realization, and economic development, Prabhupada says here, is just to keep the body in a healthy condition. Prabhupada concludes the 11th paragraph. A man should lead a healthy life with a sound mind, just to realize vidya, true knowledge, which is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing avidya for sense gratification. And paragraph 12. So yes, this whole path of vidya, real knowledge, is most perfectly presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs us to use this life for inquiring into the absolute truth. Who is the absolute truth is realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So Prabhupada says a broad-minded person who has achieve knowledge and detachment through following these 18 principles of the Bhagavad Gita described in the first paragraph of the purport to this mantra, of mantra 10. Yeah. So that sort of person can realize the absolute truth. The central purpose of these 18 principles is the attainment of transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, all classes of men are encouraged to learn the art of devotional service to the Lord. And the last paragraph. So, this is nice. The guaranteed path to achieve the aim of Vidya, to achieve the goal of real knowledge, is described by Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we have as nectar of devotion. So the whole culture of knowledge, of Vidya, is summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-14. Tasmade kena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha jaya pujas chanityada. And here's the translation. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So Prabhupada concludes by saying, unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they're all simply different forms of nescience, as Sri Isopanisad indicates in the following mantras, which we will go into next week, starting Monday night. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.